break it. You want to move the table? My name is Larry Ganem. I'm from DC Comics. Thank you all for coming out. This is the Art Masters panel, in which we have a couple of masters of artwork, and they're going to talk a little bit about their drawing process and how much fun it is to draw some of the DC characters. How many people here are artists or are interested in being artists? Okay, good, good. We've got our special Elmo machine here that'll allow you to see how their sketches come about. The art masters I have with me, starting to my immediate left, is currently the artist of Batman Dark Knight, Mr. Ethan Van Sciver.
Thank you.
And next to him is among other things, he's the creator of Red, the movie that I'm sure you all saw and loved. And Red.
Wait, say his name first.
His name is Cully Hamner.
Yay!
Woo!
Thank you. Thank you.
I gotta say, my mother loves the movie Red as well. So
As does mine.
yeah, see, it's a mother movie. Okay, so what we're gonna do is the guys are gonna do some sketching. They're gonna talk about their process. We're gonna have some sketches to give away at the end of this. But what I usually do is I usually ask them while they're drawing, and then at the end we open it up for questions. But inevitably, there are more questions than we can answer. So what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to try and do something different. We're going to sort of let the questions sort of flow as things are going on. So think about the questions you have. Who wants to go first?
All right, I'll draw.
Cully's going to go first. Big round of applause for Cully for going first.
Ask the crowd.
Okay. All right. Okay, Cully's going to warm up with a Batman, if that's okay. You got your paper?
You know what?
He left his paper. Okay.
That's interesting.
Okay. So now, Cully, how long have you been drawing comics?
Doing comics since about 22 years now.
And how did you actually break into comics?
I went to a lot of conventions. I showed my portfolio around a lot, but honestly, I broke in because I met a lot of other artists who introduced me to their editors, and you know, editors talk to editors, and sooner or later somebody gave me a job because I wouldn't go away.
Do you remember who the someone?
The first editor that I got a job from at DC was a guy named Kevin Dooley, who is the editor of Green Lantern at the time. I started on a comic called Green Lantern Mosaic back in 1991. And
Okay.
that was my first DC job. I had a couple of small jobs before that, and you know, kind of cut my teeth on those.
Now the pencil is not going to show up well on the Elmo.
It's showing up pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it's doing okay. Every once in a while, if it doesn't show up, you just have to lift the paper a little bit every once in a while. Okay, but when you're starting Batman,
You can see how well I follow instructions from DC staffers.
when you're starting a Batman, what's the key thing to keep in mind when you're
Well, when I'm starting any kind of a figure or a head sketch or anything like that, I mean, it's basically going to be just trying to get just something in place to kind of give you the basic shape of the head. And usually from there, you know, I'll kind of figure out where the eyes are going to cross, where the nose is going to cross. It's pretty basic, just like every drawing manual you've ever seen. And then, you know, where the eye sockets are going to be, and, you know, where the nose is going to be. And just start carving out the jawline. For a character like Batman, I mean, you want that sort of strong, you know, jaw. And, you know, you got to realize that when you're drawing something, what you're really doing is you're making a series of mistakes that you correct. You know, nothing that you lay down when you first start drawing something is going to be the right thing. But what it is a means to an end. It's going to get you where you're going. So everything that I'm laying down is not going to be exactly what it ends up as.
Is there one special trick to Batman that you have to have a special wrinkle in the brow or something to make the?
Well, I'm not sure that, I mean, it works for me. I mean, it's not, you know, my Batman is not Ethan's Batman, is not Greg Capullo's Batman, not Neil Adams' Batman. I mean, we all have our own Batman. I mean, there's certain little shapes that I like. I tend to like to put the ears kind of, you know, a little further back on the head, you know.
So you get that nice sweep. Look at
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit more like the animated style.
Well, now who draws? You see Batman's ears or the points on the cowl, you know, in all different spots and positions, and different lengths. Who draws the best ears on Batman?
I've never really even thought about that.
You guys know what I mean. You got the
you know
Kelly
what?
Jones ears that are up to here. You
I
got
like
the,
Bruce Timm's. I like Bruce Timm's Batman a lot.
Are they better longer or shorter? Shorter?
I kind of like the sort of mid-range. I don't like the super long ears, but I don't like them like too short, like sort of
Those
TV
are
show
long.
short.
That's what I consider long.
Yeah,
I
see,
agree with
for
that.
me, I would consider like way longer than that to be long.
That's Kelly Jones.
Kelly Jones.
Yeah.
That's lunacy. What you're doing is perfect, in my opinion.
Thanks.
Everybody's happy with the length of Cully's ears.
Right.
All right.
My mother loves the length of my ears.
Okay, artists out there, you have questions for Cully as he's drawing?
If you have paper and pens, you could draw along. It's like Bill Cosby's picture pages. I wish his pen made a little musical noise, like do 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 do, as he drew. Remember that show in the 70s?
I do remember that.
I don't.
These people don't either. They're all like 14.
I know, they're all young.
Sorry.
You in the hat there.
Did you learn like through a specific like style, like Lewis style or like Bridgman style when you first started like learning the?
Is there a certain style that you learned?
No, I mean, you know, there are always going to be things you gravitate to. Like I gravitate towards a really heavy black kind of style, you know, really chiaroscuro kind of like rendering. So I liked when I was you know coming up, I really liked you know like Frank Miller and Mazzucchelli and people like that handled that. I mean, I think you'll notice that I'm putting a lot of heavy blacks on this. That's just kind of where my brain goes, but I don't know that there was any specific style that I mean, I think a lot of them are valid. I mean, obviously. I mean, there are a lot of great Batman artists. You know, a lot of the greatest artists in comics are defined by their work on Batman, I think.
Is there one Batman artist that you think would have influenced you more than
Well,
others?
Mazzucchelli was a big one. Bruce Timm was a big one. Mike Mignola was a very big one for me. You know, but I mean, there's just so many great artists that have done Batman over the years, and I think there still are. I mean, I think what Greg Capullo is doing is fantastic. What Ethan's doing is fantastic. There's David Finch. I mean, you know, a lot of the stuff he's done recently has been fantastic. Just a lot of great work. I mean, you know, you get to do Batman. That's quite a feather in the cap, I think.
Ethan, he named you before David Finch?
Big mistake there. Look how beautiful that is.
Kelly Hamner, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Your turn, sucker.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Answer questions.
Just watching it drawn and the flow of the ink of the marker.
Right.
Have an inspiring artist right here to start to learn. So,
How you doing?
what actually, the marker that you actually use to pen a marker,
Mhm.
is not like a normal Sharpie or anything like that?
No, that's a Pitt pen, P-I-T-T, Pitt. Faber-Castell makes them. They make a series of brush pens and fiber tip pens. That one is one of the big, fat, you know, kind of brush markers that I tend to use at conventions because you can cover a lot of area with black really quickly, as you saw that I just did. But you can get a lot of thin to thick with it.
So seriously, it's a Pitt pen, P-I-T-T.
P-I-T-T.
Pen.
And the cool thing about the ink in those pens is that unlike a lot of markers have been in years
I know,
past,
right?
it won't turn a different color after a while. It'll stay black. So that's what you want, yeah. Sure. Well, DC.
Oh, we got a story about paper.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a
DC
second.
provides paper to its artists, but I mean, I tend to like kind of really smooth, like Strathmore 400, 500, that kind of series. Yeah, you should tell a paper story.
Yeah, we can talk about paper. But first, let's get Ethan started. Ethan, what are you going to draw?
Well, he drew Batman, so I'm going to draw the Joker. Look, the way I start, I tend to think of heads in terms of the skull structure first. And a skull is basically, it's almost like a light bulb shape. So depending on how you want to tilt the head, I start with a ball, and then there's this other shape down here, okay? This is the light bulb socket. I'm just doing this. This is rough. I'm going to throw this away. That you attach here, somewhere. It can be here. It can be behind there. It depends on the angle. This is the jaw. Here are the eye sockets here. Here's the nostril. Here's the nose area, okay? So this is what ends up being a very rough skull. All right, now, toss this. Now that I've explained that, the Joker is definitely a light bulb headed fool. More so than Batman, who I would actually probably go work in a different direction with. But I'm going to do a head down shot. So as you can see, the light bulb shape is like this.
So the Joker starts with a light bulb.
That's just my method. But again, Cully was absolutely right. Everything is about a series of mistakes. This is not, the jaw is actually going to end up extending clear down here when I'm finished with it, adding the cheekbones, and everything is going to be, it's going to turn it into something completely different. But you want to start like this, in my opinion. And Joker is my all-time favorite Batman villain, without question. But I think he's everybody's favorite villain. So as you can see, I'm just kind of roughly sketching in my skull shape. This is where the teeth are. See this? This is where the clenched teeth are going to meet. Very important. Before you draw the lips, know where the teeth are.
Now, when you first started, of course, you weren't this fast when you were...
Well, this is just rubbish right here. This isn't gonna...
Rubbish.
Yeah, this is the rough drawing I do. I'll even, in the Joker's case, because oftentimes his eyeballs bulge, I'll go ahead and just draw some nice globes right in the sockets there.
What's your Joker hairstyle like?
It varies.
Everybody, like some people do the swept back Joker hair, some people do the Brian Boland kind of like Prince hairstyle,
Yeah, I do it differently almost every single time.
Yeah.
Sometimes...
That's because he's crazy.
Right, why would he keep a consistent hairstyle anyway? Or are you talking about me? Look at this. This is the bridge of the nose here. This is a scowly kind of thing. Because the Joker, his smiles are mean. And they're ugly and cruel and hateful. I like to do these nice eyebrows. These eyebrows like Bernie Wrightson draws and has on his face.
So let's see, anybody, again, I want to have plenty of time for questions, so we want to keep the questions sort of coming. You there.
What do you guys think of the design of the new Joker with the face detached?
Oh yeah, the Joker with no face.
It's creepy.
Yeah, that was
Very
really cool,
creepy.
but now what do we do?
Right. Yeah.
And that was the question I asked to Scott Snyder, and he said, I don't know, what do you want to do? That was not reassuring.
We'll figure something out.
I'm sure. See, that's our job.
I noticed that classic whenever you're drawing, I was taught this too, so whenever you're drawing a face, that the focal point of expression is always right at the top of the nose between the eyes. And you look at the ink, that's a lot worse. How do you approach drawing a character who can't see that stuff? Like I noticed in recent versions of Red Hood, you've actually got a slight outline of his face. But how do you show that without making all the characters?
It's interesting you asked that because I drew a character called the Question a couple of years ago for a while on Detective Comics. Character without a face. In my opinion, it's almost like when I'm drawing characters that are wearing clothes. You still draw, at least you rough out some version of the anatomy under the clothes. At least I do, because it's like you're going to be hanging the clothes on the figure, and it's the same thing with a character that doesn't have a facial structure that, like a mask or something where you can only see the eyes or whatever, like Spider-Man or whatever. I would still probably rough in like the orbital sockets and kind of like, subdivide the face the way that you would normally when you're going to draw everything else. You just don't go as far, in my opinion. I tend to, when you draw, the way I approach a face or a head or something like that is, first I do like a geometric shape, much like what Ethan's doing, probably a little more rudimentary than what he did with the light bulb. I tend to think of it in terms of like, is the shape of the face a square, an oval, a trapezoid, a triangle, that sort of thing, and go from there. And then, I draw a line where the eyes are going to go, which a lot of people don't realize. Your eyes are not in the upper third of your head, but they're in the exact center of your head generally. And then you cross that, and then, you start roughing in like where the nose and the mouth are and everything. But with something like The Question, for example, there was no face. So what I just tried to do is kind of, at least with Laura Martin, who was the first colorist, or Dave McKay, who was the second colorist, I would sort of indicate a general shape of where things would go, and they would knock it out afterwards after they filled in the colors and everything. But yeah, it's an interesting, I don't know that there's one right approach to that. Everybody's going to have a different way of dealing with it. That's how I do it.
Well, you've got some help there because you've got, like you said, you've got the colorist who's gonna back you up and sort of.
Right. Well, and my colorist, at least for the first half of that run, she was in the office right next door to me, so I could walk across the hall and just say, please, look at this or handle it like this, or I made these sort of indications for you. Can you knock this out or whatever? But yeah. So I mean, I don't know how Ethan would approach it.
How would you approach a character without a face?
I would laugh that I was still getting paid as though I were drawing a character with a face. I don't know. Suddenly gestures would be very, very important. Because to me, I personally love drawing faces. I love this. I love
too.
setting teeth in the mouth. This is just, to me, this is a lot of fun here. And for someone like the Joker,
Look at that.
for like a villain like this, go ahead and give him bad teeth. It's so fun.
When I was coming up, I started out in a caricature studio, so I had to kind of focus on faces a lot, and I used to not be very good at faces at all, and it really loosened me up to
Did you do caricatures?
I did caricatures for a couple of years.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it really helped. It was a very informative thing
The
for
mall.
comics, in my opinion.
You did caricatures at the mall?
When I was 16, I had the coolest job in school. Are you kidding me? I was at the local mall doing caricatures, wearing a bow tie, and everybody else was lucky to get a job at the hot dog emporium or whatever it was. Hot dog on a stick.
That's going to be a panel at the 2014 Emerald City. We're gonna have Ethan in his bow tie coming up and doing caricatures.
Handsome.
And all the caricatures will look like that.
All right.
Any other questions? Go ahead. Yeah, what do you do when you're not doing comics?
Sleep.
Yeah, watch movies and stuff, not draw. I mean,
Yeah.
before I was into comics, young artists make money however they can with their art, and so I did a lot of portraits. I illustrated about a dozen children's books. My favorite job that I ever had, the weirdest job I ever had, I should say, was designing bootleg neckties for this Pakistani company. And this was around 1993, and so Beavis and Butthead were really popular. And this guy, the local tie cart, I was working at an airbrush stand in the mall. Local tie cart used to bring me white ties and just have me airbrush Beavis and Butthead or something on them, and he would sell them. Well, I guess he had friends in the Pakistani mob, which I didn't realize there was that in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, but there is. And so one day he said, "You want to make some money?" And I said, "Sure." And he literally blindfolded me and put me in an SUV and drove me out into the suburbs. And
How much money are we talking about?
a lot for me. Well, so I get out of the car, he unblindfolds me, and I get out into this really weird, halfway developed kind of cul-de-sac, one big McMansion in the middle of it, and he takes me in there, and there's this Pakistani dude, dressed all in white. I swear to God this is true. If you don't believe me, we have nothing to go on. And this Pakistani dude is sitting there stroking a cat on his couch. And he's got a list. He's like, do you want to make some money? We make, you know. And he had this whole list of things that he wanted me to draw. We bartered out some price. It wasn't very much money. It was like $20 a design, but he needed like 50 of them. And I agreed. They put me back in the car, blindfolded me, drove me back to the mall, and I did them. And so one of them, of course, Beavis and Butthead, I think The Grinch, of all these like, you know, awful things that I did here. I should not have stolen from these great companies, but I did. And eventually, the neckties came back from the printers, but because they were done in Pakistan by slave labor, they didn't pay a lot of attention to details like Beavis's hair isn't blue. Whoops. The Grinch isn't pink. So, anyway, that was the best job I ever had.
So for those of you who are interested in starting out in comics, we suggest that
Organized
you do
crime.
bootleg neckties for the Pakistani mob. From there, it's a direct shot to comic books, I guess.
Ethan, I will give you $12 if you turn that into Beavis and or Butthead.
Oh, yes.
$12.
You got it. It's a deal. You're not stroking a cat, so I'm not impressed.
Okay, are there any other questions that deal with things other than the Pakistani mob?
Nope.
How do you get into
Larry's
the
job, or how do you get
Larry,
your
how
job,
did you get
Larry?
your job?
Dude, you don't want my job.
Hold on a second. Oh, that's my kid.
Take it off, Mike.
Hi, Hunter. How you doing?
Getting into comics these days.
I don't know how to get into comics these days
No, I
because I
cannot.
didn't get into
Tell
comics
him
these
no.
days.
Are
I got
you
into
an
comics
artist
20
alley
years
right
ago.
now?
Take away your microphone.
No, it's funny. I'm sharing. No, I can't do any more. But anyway, I'm on a panel, and everybody say hello to Hunter.
Oh, Hunter.
All right. You feel the love? Very good.
Actually, Ethan doesn't need a microphone. Is Hunter okay?
Yeah, he's fine.
All right. I'm going to give you back your mic.
All right, this is it. I'm done. This is a quick joker.
Okay, we got a few minutes left. Can you knock out a quick one?
Sure.
All right. Okay, but now the question on the table is how do you get into comics these days? The answer to that is you keep trying.
It's a lot easier these days. In fact,
Because there are a lot of publishers.
well, not only are there a lot of publishers, but there's the internet. And nowadays, you can get your comic book to an unlimited number of eyes through webcomics. You know, we had to actually, in the old days, in the 90s, we actually had to con small press publishers into publishing our books that made them no money but didn't cost us anything. And you don't have to do that anymore. It's free. All you have to do is have a website, be able to be disciplined enough to draw something and produce something every day, and then put it up for fans. I think eventually this will lead to work with the big two. I think it's possible for that inroad to happen.
The thing about getting into comics is you want to get noticed. You want to
Yeah.
get noticed, and you want to establish a rapport with one of the companies. In the old days, it was hard to get noticed because you had nothing to show. You had to actually go to the office, knock on the door, hope somebody would open the door and let you in and give you a chance to see your material. Now you can put up, you have samples up on DeviantArt, on any of the websites. You can do comics, web comics. Then all you have to do is get somebody to look at it that way. So the best way to get into comics is to keep drawing and keep showing your stuff. There are plenty of smaller publishers out there who are willing to take a chance on somebody new because they can pay them very little, and that's your calling card. You do a really kick butt story for a small publisher that you're not going to get any money on, not going to get a lot of money on, and that's your calling card. It grows from there, and eventually, you see us at the shows, you get noticed that way. So it's persistence. It's just like getting into any other field like that. It's persistence and practicing the craft. Right there.
Any tips or tricks for nailing rendering of foreshortening?
A trick for, what was the question again? For doing foreshortening? You know what? I don't know a trick other than just repetition, because you just keep doing it wrong until you get it right. You know, that's kind of how I've done my whole career is, you know, I keep screwing up until I stop screwing up. Look at life. I mean, just draw from real people as much as you can. And that doesn't necessarily mean draw realistically, but you know, the life will inform you no matter what you do. But I'm sorry I can't be more specific than that. I don't really have a magic, you know, a magic word for that. It's just a hard thing to do. You just got to do it over and over and over again until you get it right.
It all starts with the basics. It's things like perspective and being able to draw backgrounds and being able to draw things other than, you know, guys with huge shoulders and biceps.
Which is what I'm doing right now. But I do think that there's, I can't stress this enough, do not use digital crutches until you learn to do it without digital crutches, like you know, 3D models or Poser or things like that. Learn, you know, if you want to learn to color, learn to paint first. If you want to learn to draw, you know, do it on your own without, you know, using like digital models or that sort of thing. Learn to do it. If the power goes out and you can do it, then you're good at what you do.
They tell you don't learn to play the guitar by using an electric guitar. It's not as hard. Don't learn to play guitar by playing Guitar Hero.
Not at all.
Yeah, it doesn't help at all. Don't learn to draw by doing it all digitally, learning digitally. What do we suggest, just in case I didn't hear it in the back, what do we suggest for a young artist who's looking to what? To expand what they can do. Cully, what do you think?
I didn't fully hear the question. I'm sorry, I'm kind of zoning in on this drawing here.
Oh, okay.
So,
Ethan, what do you think? You've got a young artist who's, if we're talking about you, I'm just going to make the assumption, we're talking about you. You've sort of practiced in some anime style and things like that. You're looking to expand your style into something more traditional comic book-like. What would you suggest for her to sort of expand her style?
Okay, well, style is just something, to me, I think style is kind of what happens when you aim for realism and you fall short of it and find shortcuts and things that look good to you. I don't think you should pursue any one particular style. I don't think you should say, I want to be an anime artist. I think you should draw what you see, your impression of what you see around you as best as you can. Do it the way that you think looks right, the way that you think looks good. And over the course of many years and repetition, that will eventually become your style. Now, Cully didn't draw like this 20 years ago. Cully drew completely different than this 20 years ago. But over time, his style simplified and became something that he now is comfortable with. And the same thing will happen to you, but I wouldn't make a big effort to finding any particular style. I would just draw reality. I would take magazines and draw pictures from magazines, draw your brothers and sisters, draw your friends, draw your dad, and then just let your style develop.
Yeah, consciously moving towards like a style is the biggest mistake a lot of young artists make. Is style happens by accident. Style is what happens when you aren't paying attention to style.
Right.
That's where you get a style.
That's a very zen answer, I know. You there again.
Yeah, tell that paper story.
The paper that we use. This stock. There's no wood pulp in this paper. This is all cotton fiber, and it's very, very particular because it has to take pencil, because you have a penciler and you have an inker, so it has to be good for pencil. Pencilers will spend a day or sometimes more working on the same page of paper. So the 6, 10, 8, 12 hours on one page just in pencil. Erasing and shading, and so it's got to be able to take the lead really well. The flips. So in a certain extent, it's got to be very smooth because you don't want crumbly paper or jagged paper when you're doing a pencil. The same extent, the next step after that is some guy is going to take that page full of all this light pencil, and it's got to be able to take the ink because they're going to go over it in ink. Guys ink with different tools, but the basic tool is a crow quill pen, which has, if you've seen it, it has a nib on it that is very sharp and it has sort of 2 points. That's why they call it a crow quill. And so you're dragging this thing across the paper. Sometimes you're pushing really hard on it. Sometimes you're going very light on it. And you've got to make sure that when the paper has to be able to take the ink and not sort of smear it, because when the ink comes across, you want that fine line. So you've got to have something very smooth, something that'll take the ink well, something that won't scratch too much, something that erases well. And so what we put through, the things that paper goes through in the comic book process, it's really difficult. And so what they do with this paper is it comes out when they have this cotton fiber paper. It's got a little bit of a texture to it, and then they have to flatten that out. So you'll hear it referred to as plated paper. Basically, they're taking it and they're smushing it between these two heavy plates. Sometimes they roll it, but this is how particular we are. When they roll it through the machines, it's not as good. It has to be plated, and so guys like different paper. But it's the things we put paper through. It's got to be just right. So we get paper all the time, and we put it through various tests. And sometimes it doesn't take the lead as well, or it sucks up the lead too much, or you see the indentations in it.
Well, it also reacts to humidity. It reacts to the oil in your skin. When we draw, you tend to draw with your arms kind of draped over the page, and it'll react to that after a while because you're working on a page for sometimes 12 hours.
Paper is the biggest headache in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, 2-ply Bristol board. You won't be able to get it blue lined really unless you use Strathmore. But I would actually go to an art store. They have big pads, big yellow pads of Strathmore 2-ply Bristol board, and rule it out to 11 by 17 with a 10.5 by 15-inch interior. That's the size. That's the working area of a comic book page.
And different artists will like different papers. Strathmore 200, Strathmore 500. But then every once in a while, you get the current artists who are very particular about the paper. A couple of years ago, we got this beautiful painting in from Joe Kubert that was on cardboard. It was on just this big sheet of brown cardboard, and it was the most gorgeous thing in the world. But this was Joe Kubert, who
He recycles.
Yeah, he learned how to draw. His first comics were on butcher's paper. In the butcher shop. So it takes all kinds.
Yeah, a lot of times people paint on masonite, or just like a cardboard from a FedEx box. I've seen that before too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I have kind of an advanced question. Marvel, or sorry, I didn't say that word.
Who? I'm sorry. What? It's all right.
DC Universe is currently reeling from a very emotional scene that just happened in Batman. And I was kind of curious as to what the process is for an artist who is looking to build a dramatic scene, and is there any type of special way they approach it as opposed to fight scenes or a regular dialogue scene? That there's a special process that they use to
Okay, that's a good question because we haven't actually talked anything about actual storytelling or layout or anything. So we'll start with that. You've got the question is when you've got a scene, an emotional scene. Is there a certain process that you have for how to break that page down? Ethan, why don't you start with this one?
There's so many different ways within a panel to express a mood, whether you do it with the lighting or whether you just do it with the position of a figure on the page. A guy who's experienced great loss, I'm just going to do rough, very stick figures. Let's say this is the panel in which Batman has just experienced the great terrible loss that he endured, one might put Batman very small in the corner here, kneeling, whatever it is, and then just leave a shadow behind him or something like that. And that just, to me, that says emptiness, that says loss, that expresses that he feels very small, very sad. I did this in Firestorm too, an issue that I was doing where poor Jason Rush felt completely in over his head with these new firestorms that he was meeting. And so I drew a very, very tall panel border like this, and I put Jason's head, again, I'm showing you the same trick used for two different purposes. Clear down here, and then just let fire fill up the rest of the panel. And it actually says something like, I'm in way over my head here. There are different ways that you can use the shape of the boxes, of the panels that you're laying out to express mood in and of itself. And that's before, the design of the panel is before you even get to facial expression and lighting and posing and et cetera, et cetera. The master of this was Will Eisner, okay? Undisputed master of mood and using, the way you position characters within a panel to express joy or gloom or anything. Definitely Will Eisner, and he's got a bunch of books out that'll be very instructive to you.
Well, now here's a question. Then you'll get a script from a writer, and it'll have a certain level of detail to it. When you first get that script and you're looking at the page you have to draw, how long do you think about it before you start roughing out the page itself?
It depends on how recently Mike Martz has called to yell at me. If it's been a while, I go ahead and put some extra thought into it. And oftentimes I'll look at a page and you have to read the entire page and what goes on in the page, and you have to see if there's a punchline. Because oftentimes with a writer like Greg Hurwitz, each page is a little joke in and of itself. It has a beginning, and it has a middle, and there's a punchline at the end. There are all these one-page scenes in the way he writes. So it's good to identify what the writer's trying to do so that you can kind of design the layout accordingly. And oftentimes there's a theme to the page. Grant Morrison's new X-Men 123 that I drew, the first page was the beautiful, expansive gardens around Xavier's mansion with roses and wonderful flora. And then he asked for the last double-page spread to be the Guardians, I'm sorry, we're talking about Marvel, coming down and burning Xavier's mansion to bits, and you see rose petals on fire falling down. Now, there's a continuing theme throughout that book. We know that, Grant wants to see a lot of just beauty, roses and flowers, etc. And so I worked that into everywhere that I could throughout the page so that when you got to that last page with the burning, rose petals, it was a much bigger sense of loss, subliminally, subconsciously. Right?
Darwin Cook tells it's not really a story, and I don't know how writers feel about this, but he likens the process to if you're making a movie, the writer of a comic book is basically the screenwriter of the movie. The artist of the comic book is the director, the cinematographer, the costumer, set designer, and the casting director.
That's why you writers
don't tell any writers that
leave us alone and let us do what we want.
But if you think about it, he's correct. I mean, these the writers it'll depend upon the writer the amount of detail that they'll put into the script. But I mean, you guys have seen scripts where page 2 they fight.
Oh, I love that though.
Yeah,
I love that. That's just freedom.
I agree. I like to be told what the scene's about. I like to be told what the subtext is. I don't like to be told what the angles are, what the shots specifically have to be. I like the writer to be as general as possible, specific emotionally, specific as far as the content of the scene. But I don't like to be told, kind of how to direct it or what the shape of the panels are. Some writers have seen it
all in their heads, and that's why they write really, really deliberate, specific, ponderously detailed panels that just leave you with no freedom, no leeway, and no option except to do exactly what he wants or utterly disappoint and crush him. like those kind of writers. The more vague, the better, honestly. Tell us the theme, tell us what you want to get across, and then just let us go. Because we
Was-
know what we're doing.
Was there ever a script that either of you got that you looked at it and said, oh my God, how am I going to draw this?
Yes.
Yeah, every day. Every single one of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
I usually read every script that I get at least 3 times before I draw anything.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm always going to miss something. There's always something that's going to occur to me while I'm reading it that I didn't think of, you know, another time. I don't want to miss anything. I want to make sure that I know what the writer's trying to get across. And I do kind of practice sort of a version of the Hippocratic Oath, you know, that doctors have, you know. I do no harm to the script, but if I have an idea or if I've got a way to try to make it better, I'll try to sell it to you know, the editor and to the writer. And if they don't go for it, sometimes we'll do it anyway.
Superman by Cully Hamner.
Thank you.
What's the fastest pinup you've ever done?
I don't know if I can do anything close to that in my style in 10 minutes. How long do we have?
We have about 10 minutes. We got it. We
can
can take
do
a couple
another
more.
headshot, but that sucks because I'd like to do a nice. What if I did gorilla garage? Full figure gorilla garage.
You need me to pose?
Yes, would you? Sure. I'm trying to think of what I could do that's full figure-y and fairly quick. Harley Quinn is not quick at all. Yeah, see,
Can you
the
do
black
like
market of me is
you know, like Kilowog or something. That's you know.
a Kilowog, like, okay, I can do that. I can do that.
Okay, we got a few more minutes for questions. Then
Eastern Standard
I
Time.
want to wrap it up in a couple, so we have a couple minutes to totally wrap up. Go ahead.
Since you guys were talking about all the different things that go into designing the actual scene or just the comic book itself, when you take all that into consideration, is there a specific comic book that, out of all the new 52, that you believe is your favorite, story-wise, art-wise, direction?
That's tough to choose. I mean, well, you know, to me, the most obvious example is the stuff that Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo are doing on Batman. It's like month in, month out, I think that is just the most solid superhero comic that DC's doing. I mean, it's just, to me, it's undeniable. That book works on almost every level to me. I don't know.
And they
do you think?
started out having a fight, the two of them. They'll
Yeah.
tell that story where it was a quick battle for control, which is something that, you know, we all kind of end up doing, where we try to figure out, you know, I need this much freedom. Well, I need this much control. And they had that.
And it's really just a
Greg
process
Capullo
of
won.
figuring out the boundaries that you have with each other, I think. You know, it starts out as kind of a, you know, like you said, just sort of like a fight for control, but it's really just figuring out how far you can go with the other person. And when you find that happy medium, you know, a lot of times that tension is where just brilliance comes from.
I agree. I actually found out that on the Batman comic, Night of the Owls was probably one of the best storylines.
It was great, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's a good one.
When Bruce Wayne starts going insane in the dungeon when he gets everybody else, that was a really good.
Has everybody here read the Court of the
Court of
Owls
Owls?
story?
Okay, good. So when you're talking about when he's going insane and the page actually turns.
Right.
And
That was pretty trippy, and that was a lot. That was very much, I thought, in the tradition of Eisner. You know, that sort of playing with the layout a little bit more than treating it as if it were a real thing. You know, it's almost like you know, the environment that Batman was in that scene the environment was his head, not so much a physical environment.
the trick is that when you use devices like that, you can't use them frequently.
Yeah.
They've really got to be special. I haven't seen any questions in the back. Is there anybody I'm missing? Because these lights they got us under make us feel like McDonald's hamburgers, and I can't really see much. There in the gray. What do we expect in a portfolio?
Good drawings.
What do you think makes a good portfolio?
Just from the standpoint of what you're going to show someone, you know, what you're going to show an editor or another pro, I would avoid pinups. I would avoid, you know, single image type things. You know, they don't tend to give covers to people that they've never heard of before. I would keep it to 3 or 4 pages of storytelling, of just sequential art. And, you know, I would also just tell you, you know, in my opinion, you know, don't get cute with it. You know, keep the storytelling basic and clear and clean.
Show
you know.
that you can draw some of everything.
Yeah.
Draw good backgrounds, draw women, draw men, draw cars.
Draw clothes, draw
Spaceships.
superheroes.
We are going to look at your portfolio, and this is something to keep in mind. We are going to look at your portfolio as the best that this person can do. Because, you know, in a portfolio, theoretically, you've had time, you've had days. We don't know. You could have had years to put those 5, 6 pages together. So when we see it, we're thinking this is the best that this person can do. So the pages really have to be good. When we give you a job, here's an 8-page story. You have 2 weeks.
Yeah. That's
you
the first question they're going to ask you is, you know, how many pages can you do in a week? You know, and you'll lie and say 6, and you probably really can't do 6.
Can you do 6, Cully?
I've done as many as 10 in a week.
What are you comfortable doing?
4.
4 is good.
Yeah.
4 is good. But for a new person, you know, 4 is not that great.
Well, also I ink my own
You know, if you're
work,
Cully
too.
Hamner, we're going to take 4 Cully Hamner pages a week. That'd be great. If you
Or
know, if you're
less.
well, sometimes
Or
less.
You take what I give you.
Yeah.
No, but also
I
as far
sorta
as
do,
as far as
yeah.
portfolios are concerned, I also want to say one thing. If I am looking at a portfolio, I don't want to see what you did a year ago, because what you did a year ago doesn't really matter very much. I want to see what you did last week. You know, and I'm not an editor. I can't give anybody a job, but as a fellow artist, I want to see what your most recent work is. And if it's something that you did 2 months ago, that's great. But if you haven't drawn in 2 months, you don't want it bad enough.
You should be drawing every day.
Every day.
I mean, and you know, not because you're trying to necessarily get anywhere. It just happens because you need to.
Yeah. Well, it's a gauge of how much you want it too. I mean, I can't help but draw every day, even if it's something that's not going to be published anywhere, even if it's something that is not meant for me to make a living. You draw every day because you can't help it.
Still want to do this?
Yeah, it's a work-intensive job, but there's so much joy in it. I honestly, it is the best job in the world. I have to pinch myself often and just, you know, be glad that there's so many people that want my job, and I have it. And, you know, every day, every morning, I try to earn it. I try to earn it back because I'm aware that many of you are in the audience and you're coming up.
That's actually a good point. Dan tells the story sometimes to, you know, when he's got a room full of new artists. You can't be as good as the current artists that we have. You have to be better, because if we are going to work with you, you're going to be replacing a veteran artist. So you have to be better than that artist. So you've got to look at the comics that we're doing now, and you've got to say, you know, this is what I have to be better than. You can't look at the worst stuff that we're doing and say I can do better than that or I can draw that. It's got to be better.
That's
So
so harsh, Larry.
It's a harsh business.
I'm a veteran artist. You're gonna replace me?
You know, but
I'm
Todd
not gonna replace-
McFarlane,
look at
Todd
them.
McFarlane was
You
kind of
would really replace me?
when he was at Image, and he said something that I really liked when I was 16 or 17 years old. Todd McFarlane said, "I started by finding an artist that I knew I was better than, and all I did was look at his work and I creamed him every single day." And, you know, I mean, that's like such a Todd McFarlane kind of attitude, but there's a little bit of truth to that. You have to get a little bit of swagger and self-confidence. I just broke Cully's pen.
What?
I'm so sorry.
Okay, we're gonna.
Are we almost
How many
done?
minutes? Oh, we got 5. We got 5 minutes.
Oh, good. Okay, I can finish this in 5 minutes.
You know, in the meantime, I'm gonna have to. Okay, I'm gonna focus it on this side of the room. And if you've been listening carefully, we've got some of this artwork that we have to give away. So this side of the room for the first round. If you've been listening carefully, Cully Hamner, when you get this, when you understand this question, when you know the answer to this question, just raise your hand. Cully, you got to help me pick the first person who raises their hand. Okay. What does Cully use to draw? Go ahead, yours went up first.
Sure. Yeah. Yes, that's true.
Yes, okay. You win the bet. Okay, we're gonna go on this side of the room now. And for the Joker. Okay, when you get this way, hands in your laps.
That was
Okay.
a plan.
What is the name of Ethan's son? Oh, way in the back there. Wait, no, wait. Your hand was up first.
What? Well, you answered it right, so it works.
Oh, that's funny. He'll be glad to know he was used as a trivia question and answered correctly.
Okay. You gotta finish that up soon. We gotta give it away.
I am.
Okay. All right, then you gotta help me here. 'Cause these
Okay.
lights. Okay.
All right.
So, this is a hard one. What was the name of the editor who first gave Cully work?
Come on.
He said it. I wrote it down.
Why are you not writing this down? Yeah,
It
You
was
got
Kevin Dooley.
that was good. Kevin will be happy to know he's remembered.
Okay, and we still got one prize in progress.
Here we go. We'll call this finished.
Good, because I think everybody's going to know this one. Okay, this side of the room now.
Kellogg. Yay.
Kellogg, everyone. So seriously, you got to help me. You got to help me spot the first hand. 'Cause
I can't see the.
I
There's,
can't see anything. Okay. For what organization did Ethan draw neckties? It was that guy in the.
was it Sergeant Slaughter?
No, it was that guy.
Pakistani Mafia. Let's give it up for them. Hard-working, organized criminals.
How fast can Larry Gannam run?
If there are any other questions, we can take them, but otherwise, a big round of applause for Ethan Cully. Thank you so much. I say this at every panel, but we really do love the Emerald City Con. You guys are the best, and we're going to come back for as long as you guys have us.
It's fun. Yeah. You got 2 drawings on each?
Yeah.
Much better than I
Sure.
thought.